Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. All right, good evening and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Karen Ames, and I serve as the Managing Director of the U.S. Campaign for Burma. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our event, Burma's Breaking Points, Crisis in Current State. Today is the first installment of our 2026 webinar series, where we take a closer look at the escalating humanitarian crisis in Burma. In this session, we'll focus on Karen State, a region caught between relentless armed conflict and the growing web of scam center operations along the Thai-Burma border. Our panel today will shed light on how civilians are enduring displacement, food insecurity, and widespread human rights abuses amid overlapping crises that continue to devastate families and communities in Karen State. Just to go over a little bit of the housekeeping, as we move to introduce our speakers and as they answer during the moderated section, please type your questions in the Q&A box. If you have a specific question that you would like to direct to one of the panelists, please include their names with your questions. One of our colleagues will be collecting the questions for the Q&A. Thank you. We are very grateful to have our speakers here with us today to discuss the evolving ground situation in Karen State. For security reasons, all three panelists will keep their videos off due to their ongoing work in active armed conflict zones in Karen State. Our panel today includes Saul Albert. He grew up in a small village in Mutah District. He has been working with the Karen Human Rights Group since 2007 and currently serves as the KHRG Field Director. He supervises KHRG field operations in the 7 districts of locally defined Karen State. Since he was promoted to field director, he has focused on improving the human rights situation by providing human rights and international humanitarian law training to villagers and Karen ethnic armed actors, and by organizing direct advocacy for them. Na Tamala Saw is the General Secretary of the Karen Women's Organization, an organization that is dedicated to ending oppression against women and children. KWO supports communities along the Thai-Burma border and in Karen State, Burma. She is also a policy board member of the Women's League of Burma, which seeks to enhance women's participation in democracy and human rights. Na Tamala Saw advocates for the Karen people at the local, regional, and international levels, with a focus on protecting women and girls, community ownership, and humanitarian support for refugees and internally displaced persons. Saw Adwa joined the Karen resistance after the Burma Socialist Program Party crackdown on the '88 uprising. After serving in the resistance for 10 years, he became involved in Karen education within the Karen refugee camps for 3 years. He then worked with the Karen Teacher Working Group for 15 years across Karen State and some parts of Mon State, Pago Division, and Tanathia Division, and with RISE, which is the Rural Indigenous Sustainable Education, for 3 years before joining the Karen Peace Support Network in 2004, where he is now. In the audience today, and thank you to our panelists for joining in today's panel discussion. So I'd like to move to our moderated discussion. Saw Albert, since 2021, the junta has pursued a deliberate systematic campaign of violence against civilians in Karen State, not as collateral damage, but as a core military strategy. KHRG's community-based monitors have documented this from the ground up, which gives you a unique, granular, and longitudinal view that satellite imagery and secondhand reporting simply cannot capture. So I want to push beyond the cataloging of abuses and ask you to help us understand the logic of what the junta is doing. What are the patterns in KHRG's documentation suggest with these attacks on villages, civilian infrastructure, and humanitarian access, and how they're coordinated attacks rather than isolated incidents? And what does this tell us about the junta's actual military objectives in Karen State, especially as displacement has become chronic rather than temporary, and how those protection needs and survival strategies of Karen communities evolved, and where are the most dangerous gaps that the international community is either ignoring or failing to address? And critically, given the documented patterns of airstrikes, landmines, and deliberate obstruction of aid, What is the threshold of evidence KHR believes now exists for serious accountability mechanisms, and why hasn't that threshold translated into meaningful international action? So, Albert,
Sorry, I muted my mic.
oh, you're fine.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, since Kansas founded in 1992, our documentation has shown consistent demonstrate that the military intentionally targets civilian and civilian infrastructure, and this has intensified significantly since the 2021 coup. We have confidence to say that these are indiscriminate, if not outright, deliberate attack on civilian target for a few reasons. The first is the scale and consistency in which they happen. Civilian attacks have been documented in all seven districts and almost every township, resulting in the death of hundreds and displacement of thousands. And the second reason is that villagers regularly report to us air reconnaissance done by the military ahead of an attack. From the air, civilian targets such as school, churches, and pagoda are easily identifiable, yet they are frequently attacked after their air reconnaissance. And third, we commonly receive report of attack happening despite no nearby fighting or even resistant force present at all. Alternatively, villagers have also shared that fighting in the area can trigger retaliation violence against nearby village. We also have documentation of the military using villager as a human shield and navigator and use their village as a cover for themselves, further put the villager at risk of human rights violations. Last, the military focused strategy to provide EU access to food, fur, and recruit and information is a long documented policy with significant civilian impact that they are still using today. Like everywhere else here, without a direct connection to the military, we can only speculate what this means about their actual military objective. However, what we can say is that this strategy have resulted in a pervasive environment of fear that in the past has been used to control current state, cause division among current people, and create exhaustions that makes vulnerable to compromise that ultimate benefit the military regime rather than our needs, as we saw during the NCM period. Um, and the chronic displacement has both deepened and complicated the protections and humanitarian needs of current community. When displacement was short term, it's possible to return to their village and continue their farming and livelihood once the violence in their area was finished. Now, the sustained violence and constant movement needed to protect themselves from it has made it nearly impossible to maintain livelihood. Similarly, education is very difficult to maintain in constant instability. Medical needs have also risen substantially as a result of unhealthy living conditions created by prolonged displacement. The chronic food insecurity and accompanying displacement can weaken people's immune system, and then they are now much more vulnerable to disease related to poor hygiene as well as seasonal diseases such as malaria and dengue. Small infection that would normally be easily treatable can turn into a matter of life and death without access to cleanliness or medications. Women and children are also more vulnerable in displacement as they are exposed to Additional risks include exploitation and sexual violation. Sorry. Despite how dire all of this, villagers are still finding a way to support themselves and their community. For example, a current environment and social action network have to organize community rights bank when everyone contribute what they have and it is redistributed equitably throughout the community. Villagers also have taken initiative to continue schooling, organizing classes in cave in the forest. I think that a common weakness of international humanitarian response, including what we see in Kresge throughout Burma, is the tendency to neglect pre-existing community-led initiative. This is the most dangerous gap we see in international sport. For whatever sector the international community want to support, whether this is a healthcare, education, food support, or anything else, it is mostly guaranteed that there is already a current CBO CSO working on this issue. We ask that the international community support us via partnership rather than a charity. This respects our dignity and is far more effective at meeting the need of the ground. We believe that we crossed the threshold of evidence needed for serious international accountability mechanism long ago, not just in Korea, but throughout the entire country. There is a significant and continually growing body of evidence of one crime and crime against humanity that is generated by civil society actor like ourselves, but also the UN mandate body such as WWM. Despite this international mechanism, like the UN Security Concern and International Court, fail to meaningfully intervene. The Security Council is mandated to intervene in the situation that threatens international peace and security, which we believe the war in Burma clearly does. Yet there has only been one resolution since the coup and no referring to us SEJ. Although there has been a recommendation of an arrest warrant for May Only at the ICC related to his crime against Rohingya, this has yet to be formally issued. But even if it is issued, unless he is actually arrested, action like this don't translate to improve on the ground and are viewed as a largely performative. And it is frustrating and baffling at times to see how little action is being taken for the people of Burma. However, we believe this is for a few reasons. The first and most obvious that there is a lack of political will to intervene. Western countries often defer to ASEAN and regional interventions. Meanwhile, ASEAN principle of non-interference has created a very easy excuse to not take action, which make Timor-Leste reserve universal jurisdiction case all the more important. We hope to see initiatives like this continue and expand. Lastly, maybe most importantly, I believe that our current international system of accountability and intervention are not fit for the purpose for the situation like Burma. Our current system revolve around the idea of nation state, yet Burma has no legitimate state authority to engage with. Despite this, the international community seemed to be very hesitant to engage with non-state authority, even though these non-state actors have substantial local legitimacy with the people of Burma. Recognizing our reality by showing flexibility in who is recognized as authority that can be engaged with could have significant and immediate impact in improving the dynamic on the ground. So this is our perspective on why no action is being taken, but we would like to turn back on those from the international community here and ask you to tell us your challenge for engagement and actions. We ask that you listen to the people of Burma, work with us to navigate these all challenges together, and that you will see the people of Burma as your alliance and partner, not as a helpless people waiting to be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Saw Albert. That that is a lot of information and critical impacts that you've shared with us that is happening in current state, not just in that region, but throughout the country. Patterns that have been repeatedly um, seen and acted upon by the Burmese junta. So I'd like to turn to Nata Malasa. Saul Albert gave us a powerful picture of the broader civilian crisis in current state, and he touched just briefly on the crisis or what women and girls are experiencing within the camps. And we know from decades of documentation that conflict does not affect everyone equally, and that women and girls often bear a distinct and devastating burden that rarely makes it into the headline numbers. So I want to ask you to go beyond the general picture and help us understand what KWO's monitors are specifically seeing on the ground. What patterns of gender-based violence are emerging in current state since 2021? And are these patterns changing in nature, frequency, or geography as the conflict intensifies? We know that experiences differ dramatically depending on whether a woman is displaced, living under junta control, or caught in an active conflict zone. So, what does KWO's documentation reveal about those differences? Is there a particular age group, such as adolescent girls, elderly women, or young mothers, facing distinct forms of abuse? And most critically, are there violations that KWO is seeing that remain almost entirely invisible in international reporting and advocacy? Abuses that the world is simply not paying attention to, and why?
Thank you, Karen. Since 2021, the violence against women has increased and it has changed. Before, we see more of arrest, forced labor, looting, and using women as a human shield. But now, the biggest threat is from the sky, the airstrike. More than 500 women and girls has been killed and over 1,200 injured by the indiscriminate bombing and shelling in our area. They are not soldiers. These are mothers, daughters, and grandmothers. Airstrikes create constant fear. You cannot prepare. You cannot run fast enough. Women live every day not knowing when the next bomb will fall. Despite all of this, women continue to serve as the primary caregivers in their families and also in the community. When women are injured, the consequences extend beyond the individual. Their children and those dependent on them are also deeply affected. Injured women are often unable to provide care. And when the children are injured, women carry the burden of arranging medical treatment, traveling to the hospitals, and at the same time ensure that the other children remain at home are cared for. These are significantly increased. This has significantly increased the emotional distress and psychological pressure on women. Sexual violence still happens. We know this. But it is very hard to document because women are afraid. There is no justice system under the military regime. Survivors fear retaliation. Many stay silent. Displacement has also increased gender-based harm. Women in hiding area do not have access to family planning, safe childbirth care, or even basic menstruation supplies. Pregnant women suffer from malnutrition. Some cannot produce enough milk for their babies. Many women lost their husband and become widows. They now carry full responsibility for their families while living in conflict. So the violence is not only physical, it is emotional, economic, and psychological. Women are not only responsible for their own emotional, economic, and psychological health, but for the entire families as well, especially for the children. So it affects women in every part of their lives. Women in military regime control area fear arrest and interrogation. Women in displacement fear bombing and lack of services. Women in active conflict zone face both ground fighting and air attacks. The biggest change is the airstrikes. The fear is constant. Women cannot tell the difference between a normal airplane and a military jet. Even small sound make people run. Children now know where to hide. Some gather every afternoon to prepare in case there is attack. This is not a normal childhood life. Different women face different burdens. For the young mothers, worry every day about their children's safety, food, and education. For adolescent girls, fear harassment and losing their education. Elderly women struggle when their family must flee quickly and repeatedly again and again. Widows face deep economic hardship and loneliness. So no woman feels safe. Fear is part of their daily life. The scale of area bombing is not receiving enough attention anymore. In the area under the administration of Korean National Union, there has been more than 4,800 airstrikes and 3,400 artillery attacks since 2021. More than 200 public buildings have been destroyed, including school, clinic, churches, and monastery. These are civilian places. We feel like at first the world pay attention. Now these actors are just numbered in the reports or news. But for us, every attack brings terror. Another invisible issue is that the Burma army does not produce its own jet fuel or fighter jets. These are imported. Without international suppliers, this bombing will not continue at this scale. If the international community does not stop these transfers, then they are indirectly allowing this violence to continue.
Apologies. Thank you, Na Tamalasa. You've given quite a bit in just the snapshot on the experiences of women and girls. And I think what really stuck with me is that fear is so deeply ingrained in their daily life that it's not just being experienced by women and girls, but it goes all the way down to those who are children, and that they have to live these experiences without knowing what life is what is being beyond what is happening in these active armed conflict zones. We just heard from Saw Albert and Na Tamala Saw about the critical impacts on civilians in current state. And I want to just pivot just a little bit to another emerging concern that is quickly becoming a transnational issue. And this is on top of the existing human rights violations that are being committed with impunity by the Burmese junta. And Saw Adawa, KPSN holds a unique and historically significant position in this story. You were documenting scam center operations before most of the world had even heard of them, before they became a global news phenomenon, and before governments started paying attention. That early documentation matters enormously because it means you have that long-term perspective that no one else has. And given what we've heard earlier today, I want to ask you, the vantage point to help us understand not just what these operations look like today, but how have they transformed? How have the location, scale, and sophistication of scam compounds changed since KPSN first began exposing them? And what does that trajectory tell us about how these criminal networks have adapted, expanded, and entrenched themselves in Karen State's conflict landscape? Beyond the trafficking and forced labor that has made headlines, what does KPSN's documentation reveal about the full spectrum of human rights violations inside these compounds, including torture, killings, and forms of abuse that the international media has not adequately reported? And critically, what has the impact been on local Karen communities who are already experiencing all of these human rights violations, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and are now living in the shadow of these operations on their land, their livelihoods, their safety, their relationship to armed actors who are supposed to protect them, but may in fact be profiting from the exploitation? Can you please share with us today?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Karen and USCB for inviting me to join Crisis in Current State event as a panelist. Actually, KPS and report on the new Chicago casino town was published in early 2020, before COVID and before it. At that time, we already identified the problem with this kind of development, how the Burmese military authorities and their bodyguard force Korean land to Chinese transitional gambling mafia without waiting for federal reform and peace, and how traditional livelihoods, culture, and sovereignty were being eroded by the rapid urban development and influx workforce interested only in financial profits. Since then, many similar scam have not and but where many locals also willingly working because they cannot find source of income amid Burma failing economy. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Saadawa. Um, just a reminder before we move on to our next round of questions, uh, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A box that you can find below at the bottom of your screen. One of our team members will get to those questions and we'll reserve those for the Q&A section after this next round of questions. So thank you, Saadawa, for just giving this quick snapshot on KPSN's documentation, early documentation of the scam compounds. I'd like to dive a bit deeper and turn to you, Saul Albert. So scam centers in Karen State are not simply a criminal phenomenon that happens to exist alongside conflict. The evidence strongly suggests that they are structurally enabled by it. The militarization, territorial control, and impunity that the conflict creates have made Karen State one of the most hospitable environments in the region for large-scale trafficking and forced criminality operations. With that framing in mind, how are the scam center operators and their brokers exploiting the specific vulnerabilities that conflict has created? Displacement, loss of livelihoods, restricted movement, and the breakdown of rule of law to recruit or coerce civilians into these compounds? Who is most at risk, and are we seeing recruitment patterns that specifically target conflict-affected populations? For survivors who manage to escape, what makes accountability so structurally elusive? Is it the involvement of armed actors with territorial control, the transnational nature of the criminal networks, the failure of formal legal systems, or all of the above? And perhaps most importantly, what does KHRG's documentation reveal about the relationship between specific armed actors and scam center operations? And what does that relationship tell us about who is actually profiting and protecting these networks?
Thank you. Regarding the scam center, just like Traedo was mentions, uh, the scam center, what is defined by some of the control or protected by some of the armed group in current states. So there has been a significant human rights issue in current state, and it's very difficult for us to talk about them. It is extraordinarily dangerous for our researcher to document the abuses them. Um, Villagers near the camp center are also rarely willing to speak out about this out of concern for their safety and security. So, uh, unfortunately, KHRG having a very like a difficult situation to answer to the tip that we would like to. But I think the reasons for this can also demonstrate the significant human rights impact. This is having a current state. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Saul Albert. So I'd like to turn to Nata Melissa. And we're going to continue with this conversation on scam centers. With the expansion of scam centers across Karen State, it has added a horrifying new layer to an already catastrophic human rights crisis. And one of the most underreported dimensions is what is happening to women and girls specifically inside these compounds. We've heard about trafficking and forced labor, but I want to ask you directly about the sexual violence. What is KWO documenting or at least hearing from survivors about the nature and scale of sexual exploitation inside the scam compounds? And how systematic does it appear? Is sexual violence being used as a tool of control within these operations, the way it has been used as a weapon of war by Junta and surrounding communities? And that raises a deeper question I'd like you to address. When you look at the gender-based violence committed by the junta in the villages and the abuses, sorry, and the abuses reported inside the scam centers, do you see a continuum, the same logic of domination, the same impunity, the same armed actors, or are these genuinely distinct systems of violence that happen to exist in close proximity? For survivors who escape, what does the path to protection, medical care, and any form of justice actually look like in practice? And where does that path most often break down?
I will also share based on the information that we have. Most scan centers are not in the KNU controlled areas, so we do not have direct access because of the security risk that Sarah Elba already mentioned. But we know these compounds involve trafficking, forced labor, confinement, and severe human rights abuses. There are strong reports that the regime are tied to these scam operations. The illegal business are not only criminal activities, they are also using this to weaken ethnic control areas by spreading illegal operations and drugs, and by creating insecurity inside our communities. Based on the information that we receive, women are often lured with promises of high salaries. Once inside, they are controlled, threatened, and cannot live freely. Escape option requires pay a large amount of money, which women could not afford. Reports suggest rape is not systematic inside these centers, but psychological control, threat, and abuses are common. Victims describe fear and manipulation. We also see forced and early marriages connected to the economic pressure. Some family pushes their daughters into marriages hoping for survival. Whether in villages bombed by the military regime or inside scam compounds, we see the same problem: impunity and lack of accountability. So many women choose silence because not because they are accepting the violence, but because they are trying to survive. Just late last year, I visited an IDP camp in Korean state. I spoke with a mother whose family have to flee from their village because of the airstrike. She told me that they were having dinner when suddenly there was a huge explosion. The ground shook, the roof and wall began collapsing, and all their family ran in different directions in the darkness. One of her children was injured. Thankfully, the child survived. Their house was completely destroyed. The bomb hit the house next to them, leaving a large hole. Luckily, no one was there at that house at that time. She told me that this is not the first time. Our village has been bombed again and again. Community leader told them to leave for safety. They did leave, but they keep returning. Why? Because their family is nearby, their livestock is there, their livelihood is there. If they don't return, they cannot survive. Even though the leaders warned them not to go back, they return to collect their belonging and work on their farm and try to live. She told me, no one can help us all the time, so we have to find our own way to survive. This is where the protection system breaks down. There is no consistent security. There is no compensation. There is no safe relocation support. There is no justice for the bombing. So family have to live between displacement and danger. They move back and forth. They risk their lives because survival leaves them with no other choices. In many ways, the feeling of this woman is similar to the women who trapped inside the scam centers. They remain in dangerous conditions because they see no safe alternative for survival. For many women in Burma, whether they are in IDP hiding site, in their own villages, or inside scam compounds, protection is temporary. Food and medical care are limited. Justice is out of reach, and that is the reality that they are living with every day. Over to you.
Thank you so much for breaking this down, not just for women within the compounds, but those in the surrounding areas. That, we have this breakdown in the rule of law, in the protections, and that it just goes right back to that statement of, living in daily fear. And when they're not getting the help or the protections that they are needing or wanting, they have to do so for themselves. Otherwise, no one else is going to do it. Um, but yes, thank you so much for sharing. Um, I want to, I want to go to Sa'adwa. The central and most troubling question about scam centers is not how they started. It is why they cannot be stopped. We have the winter raids, militia crackdowns, Thai border operations, international pressure, and yet these networks continue to expand, relocate, and reconsolidate. That pattern of resilience is not accidental, and it reflects something that structural about who is protecting these operations and why. So I want to ask you to be direct about what KPSN's documentation shows. What is the actual relationship between scam compound operators in the junta and its allied militias? As mentioned earlier by Saw Albert, or not Tamala saw that, these scam centers are being found in junta-controlled areas. Is this passive tolerance, active protection, or something closer to a revenue-sharing arrangement? When raids do happen, who are they really targeting, and who is being left untouched? And then of course, there's Thailand, which is not a bystander in this crisis. Its border, its financial systems, its law enforcement infrastructure all play a role in whether these networks can function. What does KPSN's evidence show about Thailand's actual posture, and where does the line between inaction, negligence, and complicity run? And then finally, how are EROs and civil society groups responding to a criminal political ecosystem that is so deeply entrenched? And what are the honest limits of what they can do without fundamentally changing the political conditions that make these operations possible in the first place?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, it is very clear that the scam compound operators have a revenue sharing arrangement with the junta and its allies, Malaysia. The junta raised on Kiki Park and Chicago last year were just for show. The scam bosses were all warned in advance and relocated accordingly. Thailand has also cut off electricity, communications, and petrol to the scam area along the Thai-Burma for periods of time, but never consistently. And it is clear there is not enough political will to really crack down because too much money is being made. As for ERO, and as everyone knows, last November, the KNU carried out a genius raid on the Shonta Park, also known as Milapan Scam Center, which was completely different from the fake raid by the junta. No one was warned in advance from KNU, and they were able to capture all the scam equipment, money, and assets, as well as many scam workers, and they invited foreign journalists to come and visit the sites. Thanks.
Thank you, Sadawa. What everyone has shared today has been a wealth of information of the humanitarian crisis on the ground, but including the rise of the scam center compounds in Karen State and its its impacts on the surrounding communities and along the Thai-Burma border. I want to go to our Q&A section. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to submit any questions to the Q&A section. Our first question, I think this is a very relevant one, especially given how we've seen how the junta has been able to survive. We know the junta is not able to survive on its own, so it has much support from other areas, especially with jet fuel. I believe Nata Malasha had shared about the the supply of jet fuel earlier in her answer. So this one is more focused on scam centers. Of course, scam centers have to survive somehow. Who do you think the financiers of the scam centers are? That is our first question for today from our audience. So, Albert, do you want to answer this one?
Oh,
Is your
sorry.
There you go. It's okay. Your mic, yeah.
Um, to be honest, we do not really have the information about this one. I think it is really like it's connected because we can see around there, most of the scan center was protected or controlled by the armed actor. So for sure, this going to them.
Okay. And so, Ottawa, do you want to add to Saw Albert's answer? I know you touched a little bit on it earlier.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Um, in this case, sorry, um, only the resistant, sorry,
It's okay. Take your time.
it's back and word. Yeah, sorry. Only the resistant forces have the genius political will to the scam networks. While Burma military regime remain in power, the scam network will continue to exist. The international community should increase diplomatic and economic pressure on the regime and step up engagement and aid to the resistant government body that now control most of the country. More recently, it was a shame that there was no formal support for KNU from a foreign government agency after the raid Shanta Park. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you so much, Sir Albert and Sir Dewa, for that answer. For our next question, can you please comment on the connection between the violence from the military after 2021 and the rise of scams? Na Tamalasa, do you want to take this question?
To me, I feel like it will be safe to say that there is a connection first, like after like because of the, but actually there is not like a lot of differences, uh, but it's like a given more way for the regime to use the um this game center as a tool, not only like to gain their because if we look at the area where they are setting up the scam center, it will be like the border, and also it will be at the ethnic area. So this is clearly show that there is a connection on or from the military side, the regime side, that there will be like a widespread conflicts as we see now, and then also the expansions of the military control, and also like it's a way to weakening the ethnic governance or ethnic control area as well. And also because of the armed conflicts that they use to create how to say, because of the armed conflicts, they create like a more space for the scam or like a criminal network. So the result is mass displacement and also loss of livelihood for the local civilian, and also increase poverty and insecurity in the area as well. Over.
Thank you so much. With the connections that were mentioned, this basically feeds into this next question as to how CBOs and CSOs are prepared to advocate to local government to stop the scam center, and what are the strategies of local authority? All three of you are already on the ground and you're seeing the impacts from the scam centers. So what are the different organizations on the ground who are supporting these communities are prepared to advocate? So, Albert, do you want to go first?
Yeah, thank you. Uh, for current civils, also we try to do it, but it's depend on how we think that who are the local government is and who we trust. There's a military, like an armed actor, they are operating there, which is some of the is approachable and some are not, to do to do advocacy. So mostly, the currency bureaus also will do advocacy, identifying the armed actor that can be approached, and then by produce a statement or like a direct advocacy to them.
Thank you. I saw Na Tamala saw you had your mic off as well. Did you want to answer?
No, I think Trail already mentioned it.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see. Oh, we have a couple more questions coming in. Mm. Okay, so I want to combine these two questions. Um, so from TTAR, we have, can we confirm that the SEC is directly involved or they're leading this scam business? And the second question is, that we see some external help to stop scams, but what can the local communities do to stop scam centers as well? So we have these two questions, one about SEC's direct involvement, and what can be done by local communities. So, Edawa, do you want to take on these questions?
Yeah. We can you ex- explain me one more about the question? Can you tell me
So the
more
first,
again?
sure. The first question is, can we confirm that the SEC is directly involved or leading this scam business? That will be the first question.
Yeah. Yeah, one person, everyone reach the internet access or reach the new everyday data. And as I mentioned before, the SAC or SSPC, whatever they call themselves, they are not openly trying to willingly trying to crack down the scam center, scam center. Instead, they protect the scan center.
Mhm.
Recently, although they try to crack down or destroy center in Thai-Burma border near Myauri, and but more uh, just a few weeks the
Mhm.
people saying that many new components ongoing happening in the area. So there is although we don't have any. We mentioned some possible uh, uh, junta member involved in uh, in the report. But final information there, you will see how this is connected. But uh, how can we say we really because there is many shadow behind the connection, like a change connection. So you don't you cannot say who is doing what. Yeah, we cannot say who is doing exactly the general who the general is doing that this general is doing that, we cannot say exactly. But yeah, they have a connection. They prevent the this scam center. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And as you're sharing the connections between the Burmese junta and its militias the junta-backed militias to the scam centers, that does bring into the other question if like the communities are not getting the protections um, from the Burmese junta or its military-backed militia or the junta-backed militias, then what can local communities do to stop the scam centers? Is there a way for local communities to stop the scam centers? Not,
Um, yeah,
oh, go
yeah.
ahead.
If we there is a way, but it has to be carefully done. And actually, the community there also like try to find a way, how to say, to help those who like if they know a survivor, they will also try to find a way by helping those survivor to how to say to escape through reaching out to local community organization, and also like before the the attempted military coup, actually there are like a more activity that like possible to do like awareness giving and try to set up a focal point to report out the case or something like that. If there is a happen, things happen. But later on, it is like a more difficult even to go and talk to the community there. So it doesn't mean that the community there are like didn't try to find a way. They do try to find a way, but they don't have arm. So it's about their life, it's about their safety. So they need like a outsider, not only like a outside the like a other country, but as well as like a community-based organization, like as well. But we also cannot do a lot because it's also concerned the security for those who are involved in it. So what we can do is like collecting information that we have and share, and also like a health advocate to the KNU since we are under the KNU control area. So that's how we try to like advocate for KNU to like try to stop this issue that happening in their control area.
Thank you so much, Natamalasa. We had another question that was relating to the U.S. government Scam Center Task Force. So we touched a little bit in the moderated discussion on the lack of political will from the international community. With this Scam Center Task Force, do you see the task force having an effect on this criminal organization in changing the regional stability or even the human rights issues that we're hearing coming from the scam center compounds? Saadawa, did you want to take this question or Sa Albert? Sa Albert, do you want to take this question? You had mentioned about the lack of political will earlier.
Uh, yeah, I'm very sorry. I always forget to turn off mic.
You're fine.
Uh,
Would
yeah,
you like
um, one intervention that could have immediately impact if neighboring country preventing, international heading to this camp setup from entering Burma. Um, uh, which is, like people are entering indicated that this is done with at least taxi approval from international authority. So it make effort to reduce this could happen a real impact.
Mhm. And to continue on with, the question about the US government, we just got another question about key advocacy points to the current Thai government. Would you like to continue with that question, Saw Albert, since you're talking about international response?
Um, yeah, another maybe like another thing we can say about integration, therefore, what can I say? Like the scammer can buy their way out. For example, internet account will not work and more likely to harm the local community. So this is like of how to say like kind of a multi-billion dollar criminal industry. So financial barrier are very easy for them to overcome. So uh like how to say um I have to say, like, like a combination or, like a cooperative, uh, operation should be happening. Otherwise, it's not easy to address this challenge. Like Tamlas was saying, the community member of the villager around there are trying to get information from the scam center, but it's not easy with the current and the capacity they have. And like KHRG, we also, approaching the scam center, but with the capacity we have now, it's not very effective to get information. So, but it's not also like it's not easy also to advance or like uh, how to increase our capacity and technique to get this one, since they are protective or like controlled by the arm actor. And then when we say arm actor, I think it's not only one group, and that even we don't have like concrete information, I think we can say that they are interconnected. Yeah. Thank, thank you.
Can I add a little bit?
Yes.
For the advocacy to the Thai government, it's difficult to say because we don't know like who will be the next government. I think they are still in the process. So, but there are a few ways that we can do like. But the main advocacy will be we have to link the scam center with the international crime. That this will affect the Thai national security and also the border stability. So that will be the main point that we can advocate to them, and moreover, it can also like affect the economic security as well, because online scam we also like related to other traffic like a human trafficking, drug trafficking, smuggling, those kind of thing. So that will be um the advocacy point that we can use with the Thai government, but we also have to be careful with the Thai government as well. So like maybe sometime we can approach directly to the Thai government, or sometime maybe to the opposition party or something like that.
Thank you so
And
much.
scan, yeah.
Go ahead.
Can I ask, and for the scan, money laundry, it is only the scamming, and it's also also following with cryptocurrency exchange and many things happen. It is not only the regional issue; it is become a global issue. So, um, community-based organization will do what they can do, but uh, more than that, the neighbor country or international should participate in this issue because it is becoming a worldwide big issue. So everyone should understand and know about the how the threatening not only the regional, it is a global issue. So everyone should uh, participant in and crack down in this operation.
Thank you so much. And I think that is a good time to transition to our final comments from our speakers. Thank you so much for those who submitted to the Q&A. So I'll start off with you, Sir Albert. Can you speak directly to the international community? This is something we've been talking about for the last 5-10 minutes about the political will, and talk about what must change. Because scam centers are in current state are no longer a regional anomaly. They are a node in the transnational criminal ecosystem that is extracting billions of dollars, mentioned by Saadawa, trafficking tens of thousands of people and operating with near total impunity because the political military conditions that enable them have not been seriously disrupted. Given that reality, what are the one or two interventions, whether diplomatic, legal, or operational, that you believe would have the greatest impact if pursued seriously and immediately? And where are the international community's current responses most dangerously inadequate or even counterproductive? And for the Korean communities caught between armed conflicts, criminal exploitation, international neglect, what does meaningful solidarity from the outside world actually need to look like right now? So if you want to give a few minutes for your closing remarks.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I would say equivocal condemnation on military regime. However, when we talk about condemning the military regime, we ask that this come with the recognition for the Korean people. This one did not start in 2021. It started in 1949. So for Burma entire independent history, even the romanticizing time of democracy from 1948 to 1962 and 2012 to 2021, and the Korean people have been oppressed by the central government. And then this is true of other ethnic minority as well. So if this is a military regime thus far, it does not guarantee peace in Burma. This can come only when there is a reconciliation for past wrong that can support creations of an inclusive governance structure that is not dominated by any single ethnicity, religious or otherwise. So if you conduct this military regime, we can ask that you do it in a way that condemn the entire nationalist racism military system that is been apart. However, there's some action neighbor things that we can immediately start doing, such as financial backup, financially back civil CSO, and already supporting the current community, and also provided technical support to the community as we respond to this crisis that can support and strengthen our current strategy.
Mhm.
And at the same time, continue pushing for accountability for Maryland and other in power in the region by referring them to RCG, issue a arrest warrant at the ICC, and cooperate with the international court to ensure these actions are not merely performative. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sir Albert. I'd like to turn to Na Tamala Sa. Again, you're speaking directly to the international community, especially now that women and girls of current states deserve more diplomatic language. Gender-based violence in conflict is almost universally described as priority, yet the gap between that stated commitment and what Korean women are actually experiencing on the ground, which you've mentioned earlier in your moderated discussion, in displaced communities, in hunter-controlled areas, and now inside scam compounds. It's vast and it's quickly growing. Scam centers in particular represent something new and deeply troubling, a transnational criminal infrastructure that is trafficking, sexually exploiting, and brutalizing people across borders with the active or passive complicity of armed actors who face no accountability. So what must change? For women and girls in current state, where's the international community's response not just inadequate, but actively failing them? And for the Korean women who are surviving this crisis right now with almost no outside protection, what does genuine solidarity from the international community need to look like? Not in the future framework or resolution, but right now. If we give a few minutes for your response, thank you.
There are 3 points that I want to make. First, the bombing must stop. This requires real sanctions, not symbolic measures. Cut off jet fuel, cut off weapons, block financial flow that allow the military to operate, increase international pressure to further isolate the Burma regime. As long as the airstrike continue, women and children will never be safe. Secondly, humanitarian aid must reach community through trusted local ethnic and women-led organizations. We really need like immediate support for food security, shelter, education, healthcare, and also services for survival of gender-based violence. Let me share you about one woman I met. She's a widow with 3 children. Her husband was killed in an airstrike. In one moment, she lost her husband and the father of her children. So now she has to raise her 3 children alone. They are living in a hiding place because there are still fighting continue. Feeding her children probably is very difficult as there is not enough food. There is also no stable income. Sending her children to school is even more challenges because school was destroyed and or are like unsafe. She told me she worries every day, not only because of bombs, but also whether her children will have a future. This is not the only woman. This is only like a one woman that I met, but there are so many widows like her. There are a lot of children who have lost their parents. For Korean people, education is very important. We believe education is one of the only ways for our children to have better access of life and also contribute back to the community. For Kid Blue, we have dormitories, but as of now, it is full because of many schools has been destroyed. We have helped hundreds of girls to complete their education. Many of them are now in leaders in our community, but funding is decreasing while the needs are increasing. If we went this way, those children and all displaced children to have hope, education support must increase urgently. Thirdly, justice must continue at the international level, including ongoing efforts at the International Court of Justice, like Thara Elba already mentioned. For the community, at the community level, we continue to collect evidence, we continue to document violations with the hope that one day we can bring like a justice. Impunity must end. Those responsible for the killing innocent civilian, including the husband and fathers in the airstrike, or those who committed any kind of war crime, must not escape accountability. Genuine solidarity means action, not only statements. It means stop the bombing for community-based organization and local women-led organization, protect education for the displaced children, support widows and other gender-based survivor to rebuild their lives. We want people to listen to our voice, because it is not only about like a politics for us. It is our life. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nata Malasa. So I'd like to turn to our final speaker for your thoughts, Saidawa. Again, you're speaking to the international community and what must actually happen, because the scam center crisis has now reached a scale and geographic spread that demands a response proportionate to its severity. Now, these are not isolated criminal operations. They are a transnational ecosystem, trafficking people across borders, laundering billions of dollars, operating under the protection of armed actors, and exploiting the failures of multiple governments simultaneously. Yet the international response remains fragmented, slow, and largely performative. So what are the one or two interventions, whether in financial enforcement, diplomatic pressure, cross-border legal cooperation, or direct support to affected communities, that would make the most meaningful difference if pursued with genuine political will? Where are current international efforts not just insufficient, but actively creating cover for inaction? And for the Karen communities caught between a genocidal military, a metasizing criminal network, and an international community that responds with statements rather than action, what does real solidarity and real accountability need to look like starting now?
In general, Southeast Asia countries are becoming more and more important center for online scams, which has led to organized crime groups growing in different areas in Myanmar, taking advantage of the civil war in Myanmar and the weak government in nearby country. They are mainly going after poor countries like Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar. The current state, Myanmar has become a hub for this kind of operation. So, more strong policy support from international community, not just the US, but also other countries as well as Asian country to take more serious attention for this scam operations center. And also, as I said earlier before, the scam hub is increasing quickly day by day. So the international need to focus on more effective sanction on Burmese military and monitoring mechanism, document funding for local organization, and moreover, working closely with the Korean National Union. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And just to go off of what our speakers have been sharing with their candid or candor with with the with the international community as to what needs to happen, what should happen. We have discussed the lack of political will and the need for action from the international community. And I know in an earlier question, we brought up the U.S. Scam Center Strike Force. This was launched in November 2025 as interest within Congress, steadily grew. Is to investigate, prosecute, and sanction scam center networks in Burma, Cambodia, and Laos, and seized over 401 million in cryptocurrency. Additionally, sanctions have been targeted to the DKBA, the junta-backed militia, and linked armed groups protecting these compounds. However, at the same time, structural impact remains limited. Operators adapt rapidly, which we have, heard from our panelists today. And the junta and its allied militias continue profiting directly from these operations. And I think this is something that all of us can take away from today's conversation, that this is a transnational issue that is growing rapidly. It is becoming a global issue. And for greater effectiveness, we need to see real engagement with regional stakeholders, particularly in Thailand, from the international community, from the US government, and really encourage them to work with local groups whose populations are most directly affected by the scam center operations. Advocacy efforts on our part must continue to combat this transnational issue, because it's clearly not going away, and it's only growing at this point. As we conclude today's discussion, I want to extend my deep gratitude to our panelists for their powerful insights, and to all of you for your commitment to standing with the people of Burma. What we've heard from reveals the harsh realities facing civilians caught between armed violence and the expanding networks of scam centers that exploit instability and deepen human suffering. Behind every statistics are communities enduring immense hardship, yet determined to survive with dignity. Your engagement keeps the realities visible and strengthens the collective call for justice and accountability. Looking ahead, our next event in this series will focus on Mon State, which will be at the end of next month, where civilians face many of the same intertwined challenges, where we see armed conflict, economic exploitation, and human rights abuses, while showing remarkable resilience. So I want to end with our event today. Thank you for being part of this crucial conversation and for standing with those striving for safety, stability, and freedom. We look forward to welcoming you again as we continue to shine a light on Burma's breaking points and the urgent need for collective action. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day or good night, wherever you may be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you very much.
much
Thank you
for the
very much.
opportunity.
Thank you so much for joining us.